Angling is a sport and a pastime enjoyed by millions, and yet all too often we hear about bans or threats to angling, whether it's local councils, wildlife trusts, or private landowners. All number of reasons are given why angling can't take place. At the Angling Trust and Fish Legal, we fight to protect our right to fish. We promote the benefits to physical health and mental well-being, and we work with local clubs and fisheries to ensure that their right to fish is maintained.
Well, it's pretty self-evident, isn't it, that without access to waters, without access to fisheries, there could be no fishing, which is why the Angling Trust puts particular emphasis on supporting clubs that are facing restrictions on their fisheries, potentially even angling bans. And we know there's a lot more pressure on the water, particularly since COVID. More people have taken up paddleboarding and canoeing, and there's a lot more desire by the great British public, not just anglers, to be by the waterside. So guarding our fishing rights really is a priority for us.
Fishing on the pier means a massive amount to me. I suppose in some people where you've got fly fishermen or salmon fishermen, they want to fish the Spey or the Tweed or whatever else. For sea fishermen, coming to here was sort of like a wow moment. I was able to tell friends that I'd fished on Admiralty Pier, which they all thought was brilliant. I spent a lot of years in the army. I had a really serious accident 10 years ago, and the one thing that got me back going again was sea fishing, because I became very withdrawn. But getting out, fishing with friends, getting on places like the Admiralty Pier was able to get me through a really hard point in life. A lot of people coming to Dover would bring money into the town for it, buying fishing stuff and whatever else. But the biggest shock was the fact that how long people have fished here for, to have all of a sudden cut off was just, it was huge. It was something that we never ever thought could ever happen.
Admiralty Pier closed for the pandemic, and when the pandemic came to an end, many sea anglers were looking forward to the pier reopening. And then the Dover Harbour Board got in contact with the local club, the Dover Sea Angling Association, to tell them that angling on the pier after over 100 years was coming to an end. So the local club got in contact with us at the Angling Trust to ask for our help to get the pier reopened. And we had a series of meetings between the club and the Harbour Board and ourselves to try and understand the problem and to try and find a solution. The Harbour Board was saying the problem was a security issue and that anglers posed a security threat. We were actually able to show them and convince them that anglers actually improved security because it was a well-managed venue with our own security on the pier. And eventually the Harbour Board accepted the arguments that ourselves and the club had been making, and at the beginning of 2022, Admiralty Pier reopened to sea angling and is once again that iconic venue that so many of us love.
When they took the fishing away from the Admiralty Pier, it's hard to sort of put it into words. It was sort of like just somebody's taking the last wind out of you from somewhere that you really enjoy, and all of a sudden it's just no longer there. But thankfully now, we're back on here. It brought back an awful lot of memories for a couple of years that I didn't fish, plus the friends that I fished with. It meant I was able to spend more quality time with them, rather than just spending time at home or in the garden or whatever. Being out fishing, it tends to bond people together a lot better, because the camaraderie of it, the fun of it, the jokes and everything else when it goes wrong, and it makes life a lot easier.
With the riparian rights system in place in this country, I mean, clearly there is always the possibility that landowners in particular could be approached by other interests, non-angling interests, to get rid of angling in favour of other sports. That's certainly one threat to angling clubs and to fisheries. Another one is anti-angling sentiment, and sadly we've seen that in some of the wildlife trusts of late, where clearly groups of anti-angling militants have come together and put pressure on wildlife trusts to get rid of angling on their nature reserves. We've seen that specifically in Sevenoaks in Kent, and more recently in the Ashmore gravel pits up in Nottingham. I'm delighted to say that the Angling Trust fought vigorous campaigns on both of those examples, and those angling bans or those angling restrictions were overturned, and those clubs can look forward to a good future, continuing to catch fish on waters that they've cared for many years.
Sevenoaks is a really special place. It's a nature reserve, so you get all sorts of different wildlife. It's peaceful and it holds some beautiful fish.
Yesterday I was watching an oyster catcher going to and from the swim, and also the kingfish has been flying to and fro. You can be fishing in certain swims where you can't see another angler, and it's lovely to be here.
First thing in the morning when you wake up, you see the sun rising and you see the geese on the lake and everything, so it's just very peaceful, tranquil.
We've been fishing here since 1948, and we've had obviously a long history with the various owners of the lake and also the licensor or subleasers.
The new staff at the Kent Wildlife Trust came along, and out of the blue they gave us 2 months' notice to stop fishing.
It came out of nowhere, we were not expecting it, and the result was that we obviously found ourselves in a position where we had a lot of members, upwards of 900 members, wanting to go fishing here, and suddenly there was no lake.
The fact that we was going to potentially lose the fishing here, people were losing sleep over it. It was, you know, we took it in a bad way.
I think anglers have a major role to play in the wider environment because they are here day and night. They may be fishing, but most of the time they're seeing, they're looking around, they're part of the landscape. They see things that people who are just walking around would not see.
When we found out that the Angling Trust were getting involved, we were lucky that with their backing and the people and connections they had, that there was a chance that we may not have lost the fishing here.
The Angling Trust were particularly proactive in involving MPs, a member of the House of Lords, and the local newspapers and TV stations. And the publicity campaign that we stirred up persuaded the Kent Wildlife Trust to talk to the Angling Trust and ourselves, and we were able to sit down and come to a resolution that was satisfactory to both sides, and fishing was able to continue.
I think it's very important that there should be bodies of organisations that help to protect the fishing rights of angling clubs and individuals.
If your club or fishery is having access problems, I would suggest they contact Fish Legal and the Angling Trust quickly, because they have a depth of experience and lots of contacts that they can marshal, put together to fight your case and give you every assistance.
I can't express more strongly how important it's been to us. Their advice and support has been unbelievably invaluable, and I would recommend any club in our position that we were originally in, the first thing they do is they go to Angling Trust to seek support. Don't assume that you're on your own, because you're not. And Angling Trust have got a wealth of information and very experienced people.
I think every successful campaign we mount that overturns an angling ban or restrictions on angling puts a marker down for the future. It's a disincentive for others to want to try and take on the angling community. We do have a very vigorous, very effective campaigning arm. We do have great support amongst pro-angling MPs in Parliament. We do have links with government ministers. We have links with the national and regional media. We can bring all that to bear. And so if push comes to shove, we can give the kind of professional support that angling clubs and fisheries need to ensure that they've got access to fishing, access to their fisheries long into the future.
Whether it's a national threat to angling, be it animal sentience or the anti-angling lobby, or whether it's a local access issue for a club or a fishery, the Angling Trust and Fish Legal have your back. Join the Angling Trust and Fish Legal now to protect the future of our sport.